Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and today it is my mock draft for week 15, 2 rounds. As always, all 63 picks in the first 2 rounds. Make sure, before we get started, to hit the like and the subscribe. It is the easiest, quickest, and freest way you can support this channel. So please go ahead and do that. It really helps out, push this video out, push the channel out, recommends it to other people, which is extremely helpful trying to grow this channel, trying to get to 1,000 subs by Super Bowl. I think that was the day I picked Super Bowl. So let's keep the train rolling and let's get to the picks. And as always, guys, it is the most up-to-date draft order, and we go 8x8. We'll start Bryce Young, Will Anderson, Jalen Carter. Those seem to be the top 3 picks in this draft. I'm sort of just going back and forth with Jalen Carter and Will Anderson for that number 2 pick. I think it's just going to be all on, personal preference of the team at that point. It could really go either way. I do have a feeling that the Seahawks will value the power of the edge rusher more so than maybe an interior defensive lineman. I think positional value might come into play there. That might be the tiebreaker. But then the Bears, they get Jalen Carter, which is just, no one's going to be complaining about that, I don't think, in Chicago. And then Detroit, Myles Murphy, just taking the best player available, I would say. Put him opposite Aiden Hutchinson. You got one heck of a 1-2 punch there on the edges. Keely Ringo going to the Eagles. This is adding some youth in there with an aging cornerback room that is playing great, but you want to be able to have a nice smooth transition away from some of those older, bigger contracts. And you got Tyree Wilson, edge rusher, going to Arizona. It could be a corner as well. I do think that sort of like Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, I could see that Keely Ringo, Tyree Wilson maybe being, a interchangeable for these two teams as it stands right now. CJ Stroud takes a bit of a tumble, but it falls right into the pocket of the Colts. I could see the Colts feeling the need to trade up because Carolina's probably going to be looking to move up to get Stroud. If Stroud starts to take a bit of a tumble, he's going to make it out of the first 4 picks. So then the Eagles sort of become a trade target, I think. At that point, I could see also the Bears perhaps being a team willing to trade out as well. Get back some of the draft capital from some of the other moves that they made, like acquiring Chase Claypool, for example. And then Brian Breezy going to the Raiders, sort of taking the best defensive player available on the board. I think they could be contemplating between Breezy and a cornerback, perhaps, but I think that they would value that front 4 rush because they're not getting anything going on with any level of consistency from that front 4 in terms of rushing the passer. Max Crosby is, Max Crosby, but other than that, they got nothing going on with that front 4. Going to the next 8, and it's Carolina at 9. Quentin Johnston, wide receiver. I mocked this last week when they were at number 6, and now that they're at number 9, it makes even more sense for me. I really like the idea of this pick, pairing him up with DJ Moore for whoever their quarterback is going to be next season. They do miss out in this scenario. If they're not able to trade up, I don't think that they're going to take Will Levis. They could be a team that might be willing to trade down, get some draft capital, and draft Will Levis. That could be a possibility as well if they don't find themselves available to be able to move up to get CJ Stroud. But if they're just going to hold tight there, just get a weapon on the offense. You don't really have a whole lot of receiver help in there. You get Quentin Johnson now with DJ Moore, and then hopefully that Terrace Marshall can continue to develop. I got Jordan Addison going to Atlanta. It's another pick that I really like to make. Because Atlanta needs receivers, man. They need different types of receivers. They got Drake London and Kyle Pitts, who are kind of the same. Which is weird, because one's a receiver, one's a tight end. But, there's not a lot of variety between those two. So you get Jordan Addison, he's like that variety, that Calvin Ridley replacement. Because you were really missing a guy like Calvin Ridley all year. And you want somebody who can, stretch the field and, get some separation. Rather than just having 2 guys who are contested catch players as your only real options, and then a bunch of guys who aren't that great trying to fill the role of being the speed separator player. Christian Gonzalez to Jacksonville. This is great for the other side with Tyson Campbell starting to play really well. You got Paris Johnson going to Houston. This is the right tackle of the future for me. He could play guard need be, but I think he's more of a tackle than Peter Skoronski is. And I think that, adding a quarterback and throwing in another offensive lineman is really a good strategy for Houston. It's a good use in terms of positional value when they have these 2 top 12 picks. Then I got Joey Porter going to the Steelers, adding to that secondary. Michael Mayer going to the Green Bay Packers. I can't really see him making it past Green Bay. I don't think it's possible. If a team wants to get him, they're going to have to move up ahead of Green Bay. It just makes too much sense. He fits so well. And it's also getting Aaron Rodgers a weapon while also assisting the run game because he has a good blocking tight end. And again, he just fits so well into the system. Then I got Cam Smith going to Detroit. So they have Myles Murphy. They get Cam Smith, adding to probably the 2 key positions on their defense right now that are the most important. You adding a pass rusher, getting another young guy in that secondary to pair up with Jeff Okudah. And Cam Smith can really do it all. So I think Detroit will see some great value in that. And I got Broderick Jones going to the Patriots to play left tackle now that Isaiah Wynn's going to be a free agent. And even if they do bring him back, could you move him to the right side? Could you move him to maybe one of the guard spots? Who knows? You can find a spot for him if you are going to plan on bringing him back for maybe a year. But I think you need a long-term answer. I think Broderick Jones would be a great long-term answer. And here I got Seattle going Peter Skoronski, and I wrote him in as an interior offensive lineman, which I think is a real possibility that we could see Skoronski drop, but then a team like Seattle looking at him being like, he can play guard. And taking him and getting a real quality lineman in there, taking a guard at pick 17 is really great value. Taking him as a guard super high, unless you think you're getting Quentin Nelson, may not be the best idea. But here, I think Seattle would be, licking their chops at the prospect of being able to get Skoronski to play on the interior as a guard, especially with Gabe Jackson aging out. You add another strong, talented, high upside offensive lineman to what was already, you had a lot of success getting those 2 tackles last year. So now you can spend this draft and hope to get similar return on rebuilding the interior now that you got your 2 bookend tackles. Got the Jets going with Trenton Simpson, trying to get a Fred Warner in there for Saleh, some consistent linebacker play. Their defense is already very good, but to get somebody who can fill in that Fred Warner role is really essential to this becoming a really good defense, to becoming a Super Bowl level defense. And I got Tampa going with Will Levis, quarterback, Kentucky, 3rd quarterback off the board. With Brady's really talking like he's not going to be back in Tampa, but he will be playing. So Tampa's going to need to figure out the quarterback position. I think that just using this pick on a rookie, Levis falling to 19, Levis is a first-round quarterback. So getting him at 19 is tremendous value, whether people like Levis or not. And then I got Jalen Hyatt going to the Chargers. I think he's going to fly up boards. His production is through the roof. I just think that teams might be a little hesitant to take him because him playing on the outside, I think he plays a lot of his games out of the slot. I think it's sort of the same thing with Jackson Smith-Njigba, where you're questioning how much he can play on the outside. I know they got Keenan Allen, who does a lot of slot work, but also I think there's a lot of creativity. You want to get the best weapons possible, I think more so, and then you can figure it out through scheming, through play design, how to get these guys in the best position possible to optimize the offensive production. Then I got DeJuan Jones, tackle, going to Tennessee. There's a lot of questions about Taylor Lewan. There's a lot of questions about the offensive line in general, and you want to get some of these big-bodied maulers in there to keep that offense chugging along with Derrick Henry, because that's really where the offense lives and dies. And especially when you go to Malik Willis, you're going to have more of a running quarterback, so you're going to have more run designs for him as well. So you want to have someone like DeJuan Jones there at one of your tackle spots. Now I got Washington going with Clark Phillips, cornerback out of Utah. You saw St. Juste has sort of found his way to being an outside corner. So I think Clark Phillips, who's likely going to be a slot guy, I think they can find a spot for him. And again, it's sort of like a scheme thing for Washington. And then the Giants, I got him taking Anthony Richardson. I am a Giants fan. And I think with the assumption of to how the quarterbacks are going to fall in this draft, they're probably just going to be like, we're going to take Anderson or Richardson, or we're going to take Levis. I think that that's something that they'll pretty much have their mindset on and sort of build off of that. And Daniel Jones, even if he does come back, it'll be on a 1-year deal. So I think I just think that that'll be the direction they go in, and they'll spend that cap space that they give to Daniel Jones, and they'd spend it on continuing to build that roster instead. And Bijan goes off the board here to Denver. It's just getting a weapon for Denver. I think that that's sort of their best bet, getting a weapon on the offense. It could be an offensive tackle if somebody drops, but I think getting Bijan, it's just adding weapons. You need that offense to start moving along. The fact that they could be a top level, top seed playoff team if they just scored 19 points a game is very telling. So you need to get guys in there that can make big plays. And, you got a good receiver group. You're going to get Tim Patrick back from injury next year. So you want to keep adding into that position group here so you can have someone they pair up with Javonte Williams who, you can use in different scenarios. You can have Bijan Robinson be a dynamic playmaker. Then you got Baltimore with Jackson Smith-Njigba, the best blocking wide receiver. Kills two birds with one stone for that offense. The Bengals, Osiris Torrance, the best offensive lineman available. You got to keep throwing this at the wall until something sticks, man. That's what you got to do with the offensive line if you're Cincinnati. I got Dallas going with Brian Branch, safety at Alabama. I don't think I've really done this yet. I've kind of thrown offensive line and running back at Dallas. So I think adding Brian Branch would be a fun little pickup for them because he can sort of be that roaming free safety in the back, as they do have some good safeties, but they're all like veteran guys on short-term deals with injury history and everything. So get Brian Branch in there, get something solid in that secondary to go along with Diggs. Then I got Isaiah Foskey and Jared Verse back-to-back there, edge rushers for Kansas City and Minnesota. Sort of add to their rotations. At best, worst case scenario, you got a number 3 edge rusher for their rookie year. And best case scenario, you got a number 2 because you've cleared cap room by getting rid of your current edge 2, which I think is more likely for Kansas City than it is Minnesota, but you never know. Shocking cuts happen all the time, and you got to be prepared to keep rebuilding these key positions of value like edge rusher. Buffalo goes Antonio Johnson, utility defensive back player, will settle in eventually long-term as a safety. And then Gervin Dexter going to the Eagles, pair him up with Jordan Davis long-term. You get 2 different types of interior defensive linemen to sort of mix in with a good, healthy rotation that Philadelphia likes to use. Moving on to the second round now, and it's Felix Anudike-Uzomah, edge rusher to Houston. This will be your edge rusher opposite Jonathan Grenard. Noah Sewell going to the Seahawks, is pairing him up with Jordan Brooks. They like to run those 2 linebacker sets, so you get another solid linebacker in there. Cody Barton's pretty good. Ben Burke-Kirvin's going to come back from injury, but I think he's a free agent also. So you can sort of let these lower-end linebackers go and bring in somebody more solid that you can play 3 downs with, along with Jordan Brooks. Got Anton Harrison, tackle, going to the Steelers, helping solve that problem. The Rams get Nolan Smith, edge rusher, Georgia. They need edge help. Desperately. My God. They need help. And with really no options at the quarterback position, I got the Saints going with Siaki Ika, interior defensive lineman Baylor, filling in a real weak spot on their defensive line. Then I got Devin Witherspoon going to the Cardinals, helping out that weak cornerback room. Then I got Darnell Wright, tackle, going to the Colts. This could be a tackle, your left tackle of the future, if you move Christensen into guard. Or, when Braden Smith's contract's up, you got, his tackle replacement. Braden Smith was drafted originally as a guard. So maybe you bump him inside and just try to figure out the best 5 combination for that offensive line. And then I got the Raiders going with Emmanuel Forbes. I feel like they got the same kind of issue that the Cardinals have, which is just trying to maintain a strong cornerback room. And because, they missed out kind of like the Cardinals did on a corner in the first round, use it now on that second wave of cornerbacks, which is still a pretty good group. I think Forbes and Witherspoon both have first round potential. And again, kind of because of what they missed out on in the first round, this is where the Panthers get their edge rusher for opposite Brian Burns with BJ Ojolari. The Falcons, I'm taking running back Jahmyr Gibbs. It's a good little pair up there for Tyler Algier. Andrew Voorhees, guard, going to Jacksonville. This is your guard for opposite Brandon Scherf. Or if you want to get out of Brandon Scherf's contract at the end of the next season, you got a long-term replacement there. But I think this is a good guy to put in there instead of Ben Barch. Then the Browns, I'm taking Josh Downs, wide receiver, North Carolina, getting a weapon in there for Deshaun Watson. Steelers, another second-round pick. I'm going Andre Carter, edge rusher out of Army. Pair him up with TJ Watt. If you're going to keep Alex Highsmith, you got a good 3 rotation there. Packers, Jalen Duncan, tackle out of Maryland. Just keep helping out that offense that, is just wasn't producing early in the year and has been fairly inconsistent because of how young they are at key positions. You hope to fill in some of these spots, which also kind of like the first pick with Michael Mayer, you're helping both the run game and the pass game by adding this position in there, by drafting this guy. So you're helping 2 facets of your game rather than just adding a wide receiver, throwing him into a rotation that's already pretty crowded with a certain type like Green Bay has. And then you're not really helping anything for 3 downs across the board for an entire game on offense, unlike now with Duncan and Michael Mayer. And I got Mozzie Smith going to the Lions, that interior defensive line spot. This allows you to get rid of Michael Brockers and perhaps even, who's the other one? They got some like depth guys there, free agents also coming up. But Brockers has a big contract. You free up $10 million by cutting him, and then you can slide Mozzie Smith in there. No problem. And I got Eli Ricks, cornerback, Alabama, going to the Patriots, helping out that young cornerback room, pairing him up with Jack Jones and Marcus Jones. Be a good long-term group there. And here are the Seahawks going with Jalen Jones, cornerback out of Texas A&M, pairing him up with Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant. Sort of the same idea of what the Patriots doing with Eli Ricks. I think there was a lot more success, obviously, coming out of Seattle's room. And you add Jalen Jones in there, you got some stud young players at the cornerback position moving forward. Then I got Cody Mock, offensive tackle, North Dakota State, going to the Jets. You're going to lose George Fant probably, which, from the way he's played when he's been on the field, not that big of a deal. And Mekhi Becton is looking like he's gone as well, so you're going to need a position there. Can't just rely on Max Mitchell and whatever other aging tackles you might have on the roster. Zach Harrison, edge rusher, going to Tampa Bay, helping out that group that really needs it. Henry To'oTo'o going to the Chargers. Then I got Darnell Washington going to the Tennessee Titans, helping out that position that they, you could use the big body guy, big traitsy guy, good red zone threat, and hopefully can develop into a real beast for every down play. Washington, I got Drew Sanders, linebacker. This pairs him up with Jamin Davis. The Giants get an outside receiver, big body Rashee Rice. Desperate for that. Very desperate for that. And I got the Dolphins just taking the best offensive lineman available. It has to be John Michael Schmitz, the center out of Minnesota. You can move Connor Williams to guard. with this move, his more natural position that he's played in the NFL for a long time. It's the first time in his career he's played center. And I think it would just make more sense to move him to guard and let John Michael Schmitz take over as the center for Tua. And here's the Hendon Hooker spot to Carolina. I think he's fallen far enough where Carolina will feel this is worth the risk. Let him come in, and then you got the competition between him and Matt Corral moving forward. Whoever the best one is can be your quarterback of the future. I think that's using a second-round pick and a third-round pick to try and figure that out is a pretty good strategy that I think they'd be happy with getting their starter out of throwing those two darts at the board. Then I got Cedric Van Pran, center, Georgia, going to the Bears. Filling that big position. They got Lucas Patrick playing there. Good luck with that. Kyu Blue Kelly, cornerback, Stanford. Keep adding to that room. I know Taylor Britt's been playing pretty well, but you have also got some veteran guys there like Apple and Chidobe Awuzie, who is playing great, but you don't know what his contract demands will be coming up the next time around. And you want to always you can never have too many corners. I think using another second round pick to help out your corner room is a good investment for this team, especially because as you get into playing teams like Buffalo and teams like Kansas City, you're going to be in these shootout type of games, and you're going to need a lot of depth in your secondary to be able to counter what those teams are going to be doing on offense. Cowboys, I'm taking Blake Corum, running back out of Michigan. This is the replacement for whatever running back you decide to get rid of in the offseason, because they will be doing that. Then the Chiefs, Cedric Tillman, wide receiver, Tennessee. Different type of receiver than what they have. They got some guys on one-year deals. They probably won't be bringing them all back, so this is a good way to sort of mix in another guy in the offense. You know Mahomes will be able to make him a star. Chris Smith, safety, Georgia, pair him up with Kirby Joseph. Good little safety room there. Then I got the Bills going with Tuli Tuipulotu, the defensive tackle at USC. Pair him up with Ed Oliver. You can let some of those bigger veteran contracts sort of fall off the books over the next year or two. And then I got the Eagles going with Derek Hall, edge rusher out of Auburn. Sort of the same idea as Gervin Dexter. You mix him in here in his rookie year, and then you can let some of the bigger veteran contracts fall off the books, and you got a nice smooth transition on the defense side of the ball. So I think with the Eagles, what I did was I did that with corner, did with the interior defensive line, and with the edge. So it's a really smooth transition for the Eagles out of these bigger contracts, so you can afford to pay perhaps, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts, and then whoever else may come up. Jordan Davis will be coming up. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, if you want to keep him around, you can get him paid by making sure that there's good young depth in there that you can let older, more expensive veterans fall off and not lose any of your production. And there it is, this first 63 picks in the first two rounds of the 2023 NFL Draft, mocked by me, the Super Genius. Tell me what you think about what I did for your teams in each of the rounds. I know some people are going to be pretty upset, and I know some people are going to love it. It comes with the territory. Again, hit the like and the subscribe. Quickest, freest, easiest way to support this channel. Even if you think I'm stupid, it'd be great if maybe you push me out so other people could see how stupid I am too. Sounds like a deal. See you next time, guys. Bye.